spending time with her husband, friends, family, including her 12 grandchildren. In her spare time, she connects and celebrates with the women involved in motorsports, taking you behind the wall about their journey of life, racing, and how they juggle everything to make it all work. Welcome to Racing Girls Rock Podcast. Strap in, window nets up, the pedals are down, and when the green flag drops, we go.
Hello, everyone. This is Melinda Russell with Racing Girls Rock Podcast. And my guest today is a young lady that I just recently met. Her name is Karissa Schisler, and she is a mud bogger. And so if you don't know what mud bogging is all about, we're going to learn about that today from Karissa. And she's going to share her story and how she got into racing. So welcome to the show, Karissa.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Good to have you. So why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself, as much as you're comfortable with, where you live, your family, education, or if you work a job or whatever, and then tell us how you got interested in mud bogging.
Okay. I'm Karissa. I am 20 years old. I'll be 21 in May. I've been racing for 2 years now. Well, this will be my third year racing. I have two brothers. One is younger and one is older. My older brother actually races too. He's currently building a mud truck as well as us. And I have my mom and dad are still together. They're married. Let's see. I live in
Do you have any pets?
Pets, I used to have a guinea pig, which we used to breed them and sell them and stuff like that. Currently, we have 3 dogs. 2 are pit bulls and 1 is a mix. I live in Maryland. I went to Boonesboro High School for 2 years, and then I transferred to a technical school, which I studied criminal justice in, and then I graduated from there. I started mud bogging 2 years ago, and my parents used to mud bog when I was little, and my mom also did it, which was great because, you know, the whole female thing.
Right.
But I was little, and my older brother was also little, and my little brother wasn't born yet, but they've raced, I can't remember how. I think I was like 3, and they got out of it because we were too young. We didn't know what was happening, and, you know, nobody was interested in it. Well, 2 years ago, my dad and I went to a mud bog in Virginia, and we were like, you know what, this would be nice to, you know, get back in and race a little bit just to see how it goes. So we were looking up, you know, trying to find trucks and stuff for sale on Facebook. So we found one. We actually built it. We had a small block in it, and we started racing that. Well, my older brother, the very first time that he raced, he ran the cuts and he had rolled it. And then we had to rebuild it, and then we made it a 48 F1. And then that just had primer on it. We didn't have paint because we were going to do paint over the winter. Well, it only took us, I think, 3 weeks to put the truck back together, which was great. Then my dad was running a race, and he then had rolled it. And he also had the cuts. The cuts are a lot faster than just the regular DOT tires, so it's a lot more dangerous. Well, he rolled it. We put it back together 2 weeks. Then my dad had ran at the Buck, and he actually had won there. And ever since then, I mean, we've got a bigger motor in it now, but it's been fun. I actually love doing it. I mean, it's like the only thing I like to do pretty much. I mean, I don't really care too much for like, fishing and stuff like that. I mean, I still do when we have the time, but it's like every weekend we're at a race.
That's that's pretty normal for a race family. They find some place to go to a race just about every weekend. So
Yeah.
mud bogging is kind of new to me and probably some of my listeners. So the tires are different. I know that. I just heard you say that.
Yeah.
And so are there different classes? Do you
Yeah.
have a running start? Do you start from a dead stop? Is it like what's the racing area like? Is it like an oval, or is it more like a road course? So tell us some of the details.
Okay, so there's two different types of mud racing that you can do. There's the track. It's called the course. Usually the trucks that have like the tractor tires usually run that. That has jumps and mud pits in it. So like there's mud deep like 16 to 24 inches deep. And it could be deeper, but usually it's that deep for like the course. So that one you race in a track, you jump up a hill and into the mud, around cones and that kind of stuff. But we don't have big tires on ours. Ours isn't really for jumping, so we usually just do the straight mud pit. You start out right before the mud, or sometimes even in the mud. You pull up and they stop you, and then they'll start the time, and then you take off. Well, that one's just a flat mud pit. Usually no jumps unless of stock trucks, because there's different classes. So you got like the stock trucks, you got the modified, super modified. Like modified usually doesn't have nitrous. Super modified could have nitrous. And depending on the classes and the place that you go, it depends on where you like what class you race, because one class might have different tire size for modified than super modified. So you might have to run a different class that you're not used to. But if there's a stock truck or the stock class that goes before the other class, usually they get stuck in the mud. So when the modified goes, and you usually don't let off because you want to get through the mud as quick as possible. That's your goal. Mm-hmm. You have to jump the stock truck's tracks because they had made just pretty much a wall. So you're jumping, and I mean, you just jump right back in the mud, but it's great, honestly. I think it's pretty fun. I mean, there's one place in Virginia, it's called Virginia Motor Speedway, that we race at. That is the only place that does have a little jump in the mud pit, but it's not like what the tractor tire guys are going to be doing.
Okay, so so they start you and then they time you. So it's a timed thing against the other people. You're not actually racing neck and neck, right? It's more of a time.
Yes.
Okay.
But sometimes they can put you side by side and you race that person, and then you kind of get eliminated to see who gets the fastest time, but that's mostly the tractor tire guys.
Okay.
That do that.
And how dirty do you get when you're doing this?
Oh my goodness, you get so muddy because we run like 4 or 5 different classes per like area or location. So we have to constantly change tires back and forth, and my uncle races, and we got a whole bunch of it's pretty much like a mud bog family. They all race. So we all help each other change tires, and it's going to be filthy, completely muddy that you're changing these tires in. But I mean, you got to do what you got to do to get it done.
Right. So when you go to a place where they have a mud bog, they obviously set up the mud pits and the course and everything before you get there, so that it's not something like out in the woods or whatever. It's actually like is it usually at a racetrack, or is it where are they usually held?
A couple of them are located in fields, but it's an actual mud pit. They will actually bring the fire company out to put water and like dirt and grade out the dirt that's in the mud the day that it is. I mean, they usually have, I say each place usually has around 3 mud bogs a year, so they separate it out, but they usually just let the pit dry up, and then that next mud bog that day, they'll flatten it back out and put more water in it and stuff.
Okay. So you're 20, almost 21 years old. What do your friends think about you doing mud bogging? Do they think you're crazy? Do they come and watch? What do they say?
Not a lot of people around here mud bog or like the sport. They're more of like the racing, like type cars on the highway type of people. So there's not many like country people that actually like to, you know, get dirty, watch mud bogs and stuff like that. There are a few people that come out and they do support me and everything, and support my dad racing because we race together. But yeah, there's not too many people that we know around here in my area that mud bogs, except for, you know, my actual family, like my uncle and my dad and my brother.
Okay, so you apparently then have to travel quite a ways to actually compete.
Yes. Oh my, yes. We're always traveling with that stuff. The closest one that used to be mud bog was Frog Eye, and that was 10 minutes away. Well, they stopped doing it because the fire company wasn't, because they were just volunteering. That's all volunteer stuff. Okay. So they weren't really getting a lot of money in the last race that they had done. Mm-hmm. It rained, so like nobody showed up except for the racers. So they just decided that they weren't going to do that one. Okay. But Jefferson County is the next closest one. That's about 45 minutes away. Other than that, we're traveling between an hour and 7 hours away to go to these races.
Wow. So when you go to a mud bogging event, just like, let's say just an average one, about how many people will be there competing?
There's about 5 classes and about 20 to 40 people in each class. So wow. a pretty good bit. It depends on how popular that area is. Okay. With mud bogging, because not a lot of people like to travel. Right. We've actually been to North Carolina, which is 7.5 hours away. I don't know if you know Dennis Anderson. He actually runs Gravedigger. He has a place of his own where he mud bogs. My dad actually raced at that place. But that place, you know, everybody wants to see Gravedigger, you know, wants to see who it is, his actual track. So there are a lot of racers. I'd say over 200 people that actually went to that race. But, wow. You know, some of the small town ones, like Frog Eye, that was near me, there was only, I'd say, 50 to 60. There wasn't many of those. It's just we're a small town.
It still sounds like a lot, but I'm assuming the time it takes to go around the course is probably pretty short. So I guess it would go quick, but I've not seen a mud bog. I know about it. I've seen pictures. I've seen videos, but I haven't actually seen it myself. I'm going to have to make sure I get to one because this sounds crazy. Now, that's a question though. How dirty does the crowd get? Did they get mud sprayed on them?
They're usually pretty safe with the whole being close up kind of thing. So they don't usually let a lot of people get real close unless if, you know, I'm helping my dad line up his tires and stuff like that. The people that are allowed in the pits do get a little muddy, but the people in the stands don't. But there is a couple of mud bogs that do a thing called Dash for Cash. What they do is the firefighter guys will get on this backhoe with money in a little jar, and it's usually like $50 to $100, and they stick them inside the mud, and where the people can just volunteer. I mean, I don't think they have to pay anything. They they're not looking, but they have to get like separated from where they're hiding like all the money and stuff.
Uh-huh.
But when the time starts, those people that the crowd can actually run into the mud to find this money. They're digging for money. And some people are just goofy and just, belly flop, dig around. Like they just wanted to play in the mud. That's pretty much all it was. But yeah, there are some events that actually do a dash for cash.
Okay.
I actually did it when I was little.
That's funny. That's I'm going to have to start following more about it because this sounds really fun to watch. So let's talk a little bit about girls in motorsports. So I consider mud bogging a motorsport. Are there a lot of other girls or women that participate in mud bogging?
No. I know 2 people, that's it, that we've raced these past 2 years that mud bogs.
Okay.
One of them is pretty much in the same class as me, and then the other one is in a stock class. They both drive their boyfriend or husband's truck.
Okay. So how do the guys treat you as a girl doing this against them?
It's pretty funny actually. They pretty much consider me one of the guys. So I mean that's why I went to the PRI show when we went. But I mean I'm pretty much one of them. Everybody knows that. Like I act like them, dress like them. I mean,
okay.
I don't know.
So that's not an issue for what you do as compared to a lot of girls that race other types of things where sometimes the guys or especially the older men, if they get beat by a young girl or a girl of any age, some are not very happy and some are just fine with it. So it just depends. But
no, we usually just make jokes. Like my dad will be like, "Oh, dude, you just got beat by a girl," but I mean, it's like not really a big deal. We're all just joking around.
Right. Well, that's good because that takes the pressure out of that part of it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you had a mother come up to you with her daughter and they were asking you about mud bogging and whether it's a good sport for a girl to do, what would you say?
I'd tell them at the right age and the right time that they should do it because it's not really a safe sport for younger women. I think you actually have to actually have your license to race in this sport. I mean, which is fine. I do it with my dad. Like I know like my dad and I are building this truck. My older brother's helping, my younger brother's helping. So like we know it's safe. I wouldn't just go off and tell him, be like, all right, yeah, go buy a truck, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
I'd make sure you have all your roll bars in there and everything's safe, brakes work. But I mean, I would totally recommend it to women. It's fun. Like who else does it like to play in the mud?
Yeah.
I mean, I used to do it all the time with 4-wheelers and stuff. So it's just one step bigger. It was with a truck.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And so I heard you say that the truck got rolled a couple times. Is that pretty common that the trucks roll over? And do they roll completely over or just they roll over to their side?
So it's not common to roll twice in 2 months, but it does happen. Accidents do happen, but the firemen are right there as soon as it happens. My older brother rolled 3 times. He actually hit the bank because he slid sideways, hit the bank, ramped off of it, and started rolling. I panicked because, that's the first time any of us has rolled it, and that's the very first time he has drove it.
Mm-hmm.
But my dad, his scared me because he hit the bank at a different mud bog, and he actually rolled over concrete barriers. Ooh. And it was right behind his head. And if those roll bars wasn't strong enough, then that would have been really, really bad.
Right. But really, it's not that common that happens, is what I heard you say.
No, it's not. But we do have rail cars that do race, and they shoot nitrous most of the time. They're blowers, very high horsepower, and they are more common to flip over because they're so skinny and long than we are because we're wider and kind of short.
Right.
And it all depends on your weight too. What your goal is to have the most horsepower with less weight as possible. So we're all cutting down frames, making, getting all the pieces of metal that we don't need. Just lighten up the truck. But I mean, if it's too light and too skinny, it's not going to be good for you.
Right. So now explain to me, so your dad and your brother and you race. Do you all race the same truck? You just change the tires and that puts you in a different class, or do you have more than one truck?
Okay. So we used to have one truck that we all raced. I usually race the DOT tires, which is the regular. I think they're 44-inch tires. And then my dad raced the cut tires, which it's pretty much the treads cut to make it, grip more and to go faster.
Okay.
That's how we did it before. But now my dad and I are building a truck for me, and I'll be racing the same classes he will be racing.
Okay.
Once he gets, because we tore down the other truck, it was too much weight, it was rolled twice, so we figured just build a new one, make it safe, and then we can, build him. So we're going to build mine the same time we're building his, then I'm going to get the small motor, and he's going to get the bigger one that we have.
Okay.
So
right.
We're going to be racing the same classes.
Well, that'll be kind of fun, won't it, to race against your dad?
Yeah. It's going to be very competitive, but we always pick on each other. We went to a Slocum Mud Bog, and that I had actually got a 2.8 second, no, it was 2.9 second run. And my dad had ran, because this we can run the same class, but we just had to do it in like a different line. He had to be way back to let our truck cool down because it gets hot. Then he ran first. He got a 3.0 second, and then I ran and I got a 2.8. And then we could run one more time because that was like the practice run. And then he ran a 2.9, and he knew that he couldn't beat me because I had already got a 2.8. So I went back and I actually ran and I beat my time and I got a 2.7, and I actually have the track record there now.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, that was pretty nice. But Dad was like, I can't believe you beat your first time with your second run. I was like, I didn't know either. I said it felt slower. But that one was a side-by-side race, but right in the mud pits. But he told us we didn't have to go at the same time. It's whenever we took off is when they started their time.
Okay.
Yeah. So
All
I was like, because I've never done a side-by-side race before, because no other pits did it. And that's the first time we went to Slocum. Well, he's like, well, you don't have to go, just wait. So I waited until the one truck was halfway through the pit. And I was like, okay, this guy's taking forever. So I took off and I actually passed him at the end of the pit before he got completely out. It was crazy. It was so much fun.
It sounds like, I can hear in your voice that you really enjoy what you're doing and that. So how do you find where these events are? I mean, is there like a series that you're in that they hold these races, or do you just know what tracks offer this and you just find their schedule, or how do you know where the races are going to be?
We're actually following a couple of different pages on Facebook. I mean, we have 4 or 5 different friends in different locations. So like Pennsylvania, parts of Maryland, Virginia. So like they know where their mud bogs are and we know where ours are. So we kind of just exchange information. And then each like page, because you can follow that specific mud bog on Facebook, and they will give you like the class rules, what your truck that has to have for this class and that class, the tires and the times, and when it starts, when it will probably end.
Okay.
Stuff.
All right. So how could we follow you if we wanted to know where you're going to be racing and how you did and that? Where could we find you to follow you?
I have a Facebook, which is Karissa Schisler, KarissSchisler. And then I also have an Instagram that I keep updated, usually where we're going, like what we're doing to the truck and everything. And that's called Boggin Chick, BOGGINCHIC _.
Okay.
And that one I usually do be like, okay, I'm racing this day, and then after our races I will post our videos of our race on that page.
Okay. All right, good. So we'll put that in the show notes too with the podcast so that people can find how to follow you and learn more about mud bogging, because I when my husband and I go on vacation, we often look up racetracks or different things that are in the area and see if there's someplace we want to go. So that'd be a fun thing to try to do. So Karissa, before we stop the podcast here, I'm going to just ask you, is there anything else that you would like to share, either about yourself, mud bogging, or any other thing that you'd like to share with our listeners?
I'd just like to say my mom and dad has been my main influence on things. Like, I wouldn't have believed that mud bogging would have been, a sport for me until my mom told me that she did it. And that when my dad said that we can start building like a mud truck for us to run.
Yeah, that's good, because most of the time it is the dad that encourages the daughter to be in racing. But I love hearing that it was your mom that did that and encouraged you to do it. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it doesn't help that I don't have any sisters either. Like, I grew up with brothers, so
right.
I'm a tomboy.
Yeah, exactly. You had to hold your own, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Karissa, I've really enjoyed talking to you and having you on the podcast. Again, is there anything else you'd like to share before we hang up?
Nope, that'll be all.
All right. Well, I appreciate that you're on. We'll share your information so they can follow you on the show notes. And hopefully I'll be somewhere this summer that I'll be able to catch a mud bog race so I can see one for myself.
All righty. That sounds
all
good.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Racing Girls Rock Podcast. Follow us on Facebook at International Women's Motorsports Association, or on Instagram and Twitter at the iwmanation. And if you know someone that should be on our show, drop us an email at iwmanation@gmail.com.